Good morning. Do you guys suffer from anxiety, just like what we did when we couldn't get the show going this morning? Does it like the whole energy ball start up in your stomach and you feel like you can't breathe and your body starts to constrict and your hands get cold and you kind of get dizzy? Do you suffer from that, or do you have a loved one that suffers from anxiety? Um, or do they just kind of withdraw and go into their own world and you can't reach them? If you know someone like that, or if you have a child like that, we have the show for you today. And Bex Marie is here with us, and Teresa Warren from Spirit Sessions, and we're here with two of our favorite gals and media star Megan Gallagher is here. She's been doing our media tour, and and TEDxer, and we're going to have them on talking about anxiety from the child and the parent's point of view, and lots of things. So if you have a child or you're a parent of a child who suffers anxiety, this is a show you want to share out. Or if you know someone who has anxiety, I think it's an epidemic worldwide right now. Share this show out. Share this to your group. Share it to your friends. Share it to your kids. They're going to get some great information out of this. Bex, take it away.
Hello, everybody. It's so great to have you here today on this beautiful Sunday. And we are so honored to have Courtney and Megan here. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of their bios so you get a little background on them. We'll start with Courtney. Courtney, wave and say hi. Courtney is a wife, mother, entrepreneur, and life mentor. She's been a problem solver her whole life and a natural life teacher. Her spiritual journey began after the death of her father, and she became interested in the meaning of life and her purpose here. She is in real estate for 15 years and now finds joy in mentoring and problem solving with clients. Having two daughters with anxiety and learning disabilities has made her very open to parenting and helping parents navigate this journey, which is so beautiful and so needed. And Megan has a longer bio, but very full for a 23-year-old, by the way. Can we just let's just focus on the part she's just beginning her journey and already kicking ass. Okay? Megan is a 23-year-old TEDx speaker, author, mental health advocate for young adults, and a blogger. She, growing up, struggled with anxiety and chronic panic attacks in high school. That's where it really hit its peak for her, and she had a hard time maintaining good grades and balancing social life and having an active, healthy lifestyle. With the support of her family and friends, she was able to open up and really bring that out and start to find ways to deal with that and manage it so that she could have the life that she wanted. And she's been able to bring those ideas to others and help them be able to implement them in their lives, recognize the symptoms, be able to work through them. And it's really powerful to be doing that so early in your life. And now she is a motivational speaker for young adults and writes self-help books, and she aspires to be at the Tony Robbins level one day, which is really awesome. And we're so grateful to have you both here today. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks so much.
It's our pleasure. So anxiety really is an epidemic. I mean, as an adult, I've struggled with it, throughout my life. I have children who struggle with it, and it just seems like everything, in schooling and in life is just kind of bringing that to a real big climax in the world. It seems like I don't know anybody who doesn't struggle with anxiety. So right. I'm going to ask Megan first. Megan, can you talk a little bit about your journey with anxiety?
Yeah, it started as young as 10 years old. I can personally remember every day, like in 4th and 5th grade, I would wake up for school, but then all these kind of negative thoughts would flood my mind, and I'd be like, Mom, my arm hurts, my stomach hurts, I can't go to school, I should just skip the whole day. And I would yell my mom's name, and she would come in the room, and she would just be like, well, why do you say that? You said your arm hurt yesterday, now your leg hurts. And I really wasn't aware of that I was having anticipatory anxiety and that I was getting worried, oh my gosh, what if yesterday goes the same way as today? And I think one thing that people do not realize is that we are the creators of our reality. So our thoughts, we can create that, and our bodies are going to feel the same way. And middle school was actually pretty dormant with my anxiety. And then high school, it escalated to a whole new level. I remember my first panic attack my freshman year. It was so awful. I thought I was having a stroke. I clutched my desk and I'm like, Oh my gosh, and that's what I talk about in my TED Talk, is just that feeling of you're in a like just you feel like you're dying. You want to get out of your own skin, and it's so scary. And I like immediately asked my teacher if I could go to the bathroom, and I just like ran outside and grabbed the hall pass, and I was just like shaking, and I'm like, okay, that was awful. And then, a year went by, and my body was having that every single day in every single class. And then I just kind of had a moment where I was like, I can't do this anymore, and I can't have like a fun, healthy life. So I sat my parents down and just vented to them. And thankfully, they're so open and positive, and they were like, oh, it runs on our dad's side of the family. We're going to get you therapy. And then that led down a journey of feeling a lot better.
That's amazing. I have a daughter who, same thing, entered high school, and the first 3 days she couldn't go. She was like sick. She was just so overwhelmed with anxiety.
Yeah.
It caused physical sickness. She just couldn't. And I kept trying. Okay, let's try today. Let's try today. And, it was really hard to watch. It was so painful to watch her go through that. And it's like, what are we doing to really support our kids and help them be able to be in the world and not be so afraid all the time? And Courtney, for you to be able to be that support for her and now do that for others as well is so powerful, because parents don't always know how to handle these situations.
Yeah.
So how did you, right? And how did you feel, Courtney, when Megan brought that to you? How did that help you open up to more ways of being able to kind of support and hold space for her as she moved through this?
Well, I just knew that there was a way. I always feel there's a way to kind of, maybe things won't go away 100%, but I know there's a way to manage things. And I'm a big believer of life should never stop, but that's how I was raised. So I believe that there's a way to use, traditional therapy, other modalities, meditation, hypnotherapy, EFT tapping, whatever it is. And I knew that this was going to be a journey of learning. And the most important thing I think I told Megan was, you will need to learn how to manage your life day to day. So this is something you're going to have to want to really work at. It's not a 5-minute fix. I don't believe you could go to therapy or do anything for, one session and then you're going to go, boom, that's good. I think it's just whatever works for the individual child. And if that meant homeschooling or a different kind of schooling, that's fine. That is totally fine. It's just, and I wasn't really concerned about the academics. I have to be honest, since I'm not an academic and I was a horrible student. So for me, I know that there's so much more than life than academics anyways. That's what I believe. And so does my husband. So that's, both our daughters are very fortunate that they come from a family where we don't have a lot of pressure in that department. So anyways, I don't know if that answered your question, but it's
No,
just,
it did.
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I know that now, it's fun. I love having both of you together today because you're both ends of the spectrum. It's being able to help the child learn the skills, with Megan, and then Courtney has the way, she's working with helping parents. And I know I said this before, Courtney, but I definitely see a book, the two of you working together to create a book on both sides of it at some point. So I'm still throwing it out there. But, it's like, how have you been able to really, I know that it's a very personal journey. So not that it's going to work the same for everybody, that everybody has to learn their own way to deal. But Megan, I'm going to throw it back to you. And what tips do you give young adults on how to recognize it and how to work through it?
My best tips and tools would be, one, just getting in touch with your own unique body, like the energy, and just being self-aware of, okay, so I just drank a cup of coffee and now my body is reacting this way. Maybe that's gonna just heighten my anxiety. I think it comes down to self-awareness. And just because, your friends are drinking Red Bulls and caffeine and going on Instagram till 2 a.m., maybe that's not going to work for your personality. So, just don't be afraid to say no or to set boundaries with situations, with people, with habits and routines. If they don't serve you, then, get rid of them. But my best tips and tools, self-awareness, just exercise, movement, going into nature, and journaling is huge, or just telling someone how you feel. I think you literally physically feel the weight off your shoulders, and it's just whatever resources you personally have. But I think self-awareness is huge, and like intuition and just paying attention to what feels good.
Yeah, absolutely. That's,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's something I think, I'm learning self-awareness at this point. I'm in my 30s, and, self-awareness is something that I've just really started to understand. So to be able to have that seed planted to develop self-awareness or start to recognize how things are interacting with you, how they make you feel is, something that I think schools should be teaching anyway.
Yeah.
That's a really
So
important
true.
life, thing a life, hack, basically, to be able to know how to be aware of how you interact with everything, people, energies, foods, whatever you bring into you, it's going to affect you somehow. So,
So
yeah, and I love that, that's one of your key points, because for you to be able to go into schools, which you do, and you do this pretty frequently now, you go into schools and teach to high schoolers.
Yes, I do it about like 2 to 4 times a month, so pretty frequently.
Wow, that's awesome. And I'm glad the schools are
beautiful.
bringing you in. That's so cool. Um,
Yeah.
and the TED Talk, of course, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I think that, for you to be able to have the support that you've had to learn your own techniques and be able to now present them, speaks highly of, Courtney's ability to really adapt with what you needed, and your father's as well. Courtney, how did you really start to develop your program for helping parents? How did you take your
Yeah.
experiences and start to be able to implement that?
That's a great question. I really just started, to be honest, Bex, really more this year. I didn't, last year I was kind of tweaking it and kind of, I don't know, fiddling around with different ideas and just trying to tweak it a little bit. It's just, boy, how do I explain it? It's just first talking and finding out. I have to find out, what is going on, what level are we talking about? There's so many different levels. So I'll give you an example. Somebody called and we were talking, and their situation was pretty severe in the fact that there was a substance issue going on with the child. And I said, I would have to be on. I said, first and foremost, I believe that has to be dealt with, along with the anxiety and everything else. But that's a pretty serious situation, and I'm not a that's not my forte. I would not know how to tell somebody, they need to would have to go to a rehab situation. That's a pretty severe situation. And the other situations are, more of stuff that I am familiar with, how to handle the day to day. What do you do when your child's calling going, I don't feel good? Another mom called me and we had a session, and her daughter is about 20 and she's been in college for about a year and a half or longer. I can't remember exactly, but she's just not feeling good and she's just not functioning and all this stuff. And I said, well, you got traditional therapy is a great way to start, because she had never gone to therapy. And I think there were symptoms, back in high school that they kind of just pushed aside, and maybe. So it's so different. Everybody's so different. There's so many different, as you know. I could talk about that forever. And there's so many levels.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the things I've noticed is that as parents, we tend to not always listen. We're there, but we're not always actually hearing them. And so it's seeing beyond what they're saying and following, their body language and their patterns and things like that. We start to recognize. And that's important, to be able to just, recognize your child's patterns, know when they're, seeming to blossom and when they're really starting to fall through the cracks,
I was just going to say, when you're saying that another parent, I said, it's okay to, if your child has to come home and take a semester off, that is reality. So you're going to have to be okay with that. And she and her husband were a little bit more, they're very academic, so they were having a hard time with that. And I just said, I don't know what to tell you, but if they have to take a semester off, that is a very big possibility. And you kind of have to just get real with it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
That's life.
Yeah. I mean, to try to push through when you're struggling so much would be, very counterproductive and destructive.
That's just sort of like, you have to kind of just decide, is it, that's really I'll tell you what I think and what you should do, and then they have to really kind of come together as a family and have a meeting.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Do we have any comments, Rhonda, from our amazing audience? Oh, Rhonda's got
You're
no,
on mute.
you've got no sound,
Mute.
Rhonda. Yeah, you've got to unmute your microphone.
That's probably good. Lots of people, it looks like lots of people have had anxiety and are suffering from it now.
Yes.
They have some people have kids and they're all different, and that's one of the things we have to realize as a parent, that every kid is an individual, and just because your sister does well at school and she's sailing through and the other kid is not, like, why can't you be more like your sister? That's like the worst thing you could ever say. But what kind of therapies, Megan, have you found have helped you the best? Like, I know there's different types of cognitive therapy, and would you suggest parents going with their kids to the therapist to understand better, or those kind of questions I would have?
I personally really benefited from hypnotherapy, where they kind of go, put you just under like a light trance, and they kind of get into your subconscious and see what thoughts are just on a merry-go-round all day long, and see, I like getting to the root of thoughts, and they do a lot of visualizations of, did something happen in your childhood, or was it a traumatic event, or is it hereditary? Like what's the deal? I loved hypnotherapy. I loved EFT tapping. And I really liked cognitive behavioral therapy, because this one therapist in high school, she gave me this awesome journal. And it was kind of like, not a blank journal, but it was a pre-written. And it's like, it helps you anytime you feel anxious. It kind of just dissects what you're feeling. Like, are these thoughts rational or irrational? Will this outcome ever happen? And is it worth thinking about? So it's kind of like, yes, yes, no, okay, I can move on. Because I'm a really big like visual learner, and I like to just like feel it and do it myself. But I really benefited from therapy. That's probably 95% of why I'm feeling better and why I am a functioning adult. And I am so passionate about going into the high schools, because like what my mom said, that's a problem. I mean, it's never a bad thing. I did 1 year of community college, but I want to teach, 13 to 18-year-olds like a solid level of tips and tools. So then when they're in their 20s and 30s and 40s, they know how to like calm themselves down, like wherever.
Right.
Like, and you even spoke to us earlier about, you didn't even know what the heck was going on, because, it's like, what is going on with me? Am I sick? Like, am I physically got heart problem or a tumor or whatever? So
Very true.
I think just by telling kids this is what it is, and so they can recognize it in themselves, and they don't have, I think that's super important.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had someone tell you earlier, it might have been that much quicker to your solution.
Right. I know. I think anxiety can make you feel like 300 different things. I mean, your foot can go numb, you can get a headache, you can feel dizzy, you can feel muscle clench, you can feel like you're having a heart palpitations, sweatiness, dizziness. So I think so many people are like, oh my gosh, this is a heart attack, this is a stroke, this is a brain aneurysm, but I think when you are educated, you can realize like, okay, no, I can just calm myself down, whether I'm on a flight, I'm about to hang out with friends, because we all, it's important to live your life for yourself and to the fullest. And I think anxiety can sometimes make people become like introverted, or they're hyperactive, but it's like, we still have to want to accomplish, certain things.
And Nancy Louise was saying she had an incredible, sorry, I was just going to say, Nancy Louise said she had a cranial sacral therapist that helped her move through so many things too. Like, I think the body awareness kind of thing, like you were talking about early, just being able to release that anxiety that's trapped in your bodies.
Megan would dance in her bedroom at night, almost every night in high school, but she loved it. And I think that was something she obviously figured out, that felt really good to move and all that stuff.
Megan, when you say that, it just makes me laugh so hard, because my daughter every night after school would go out just about sunset so no one could see her and dance up and down the laneway. So I think, and when you say that, it's like, she's a few years older than you, but that's how I'm pretty sure how she
It's
was
true.
getting rid of it. Yeah, she would, and we go, I said, what are you doing? I'm dancing. Just leave me alone.
It's such a release though. You feel like, I remember when I was like 12 years old, I would just kind of put on these headphones and I would just listen to, and I was like, whoa, okay. So that's why I'm so big on self-awareness, is because I was like, wow. So I dance around my room and then I'm like, wait, I'm not worried anymore. I kind of feel like better. I feel like these happy endorphins and hormones, and I'm like, okay, so this made me feel better. I want to do this every night. And so I started doing it, and I still do it to this day if I'm overwhelmed.
That's awesome. I was just dancing before we came on, so I was just to throw it out there. Like,
Yeah.
I was in my room dancing away. But I think
I
it's
love
important
that.
to also recognize that, learning the skills to manage anxiety does not mean it's going to go away. There's always going to be a situation that pops up where you're going to start to feel that trigger. You're still feel that anxiety coming up.
Yeah.
It's having the awareness to learn how to move through that. Not looking for something that's going to make it just disappear. I think that's also really important to mention, because people do look for something that's going to make it all gone. They don't have to deal with it anymore. But it's not the case. We're not here to just, make things disappear. We're here to learn how to cope. We're learning to heal ourselves by learning the techniques to be able to move through things, to recognize.
So true. So true.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. But yeah, so.
Teresa, you had a question. I'm sorry, you had a question.
I had a question, Megan. When you're at the high schools and you're talking to them, I mean, that's on the front lines where they're dealing with it. What questions do they come to you with the most often?
It's definitely a mixed bag, but I would say they ask a lot. Like 2 days ago, I was speaking at Monte Vista High School. It's a few towns over in San Ramon, and they're all seniors, and so they're about to graduate, and they're just that overwhelmed stress of like, I'm going to this next level of my life. Oh my gosh! And I remember literally, I felt like I was being pushed towards the edge of a cliff. I'm like, I don't want to go. But this one student asked, how do I stop the negative thoughts before it turns into something bigger where I have, the physical panic attack and I want to like get out of a room or go be alone? And I was like, that's a great question. Another guy asked, and I love it when teen boys ask questions, because I think it's just so sweet. Another teenage boy asked the question, how do I hold the space for my friend who I think is struggling with anxiety? And it's a lot about, what are gut feelings, what is body, like self-awareness. And a lot of them are like, my parents don't talk about this. Like, I don't really know much about this. So it's a mixed bag of questions, but a lot of it is, how do I manage my time? How do I control my thoughts? And how do I know what is best for me?
Those are good questions.
I think a lot of it is parents don't know anything about it, to be quite honest. And what do you think are the biggest contributors to this teen epidemic of anxiety? What do you feel? What's the thing, and what can we do to help them?
I think the biggest factors are, one, I talked about it in my TEDx talk. There's like a Harvard statistic out there that comparing 1980 to 2019, like on a timeline, the average GPA it takes to get into a four-year college, in 1980, it was a 2.5. In 2019, it's a 3.7. So I think when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I think there's so much academic just pressure, and you have to perform well, and in high school, everything matters. So if they don't get one good grade on that history test and they're a sophomore, I think they want to like pull their hair out, because they're like, oh my gosh, I just got set back, 2 years. And I think a lot of it is social media.
Social media. Oh boy.
Just the comparison, and this person has 5 million followers, so their life must always be great. They must always be in shape. They must always be hanging out with celebrities and on private jets. But it's like, that's literally one picture. Like, we are not with them the other 23 and a half hours of maybe, they don't live in that house and it's just their neighbor's house and they took a picture in front of it. Like, we just don't know what's going on behind it. But I think comparison, the academic stress, and I think just technology and the social media adds so much, because when you're a teenager, we all felt that way of your body's changing and the hormones, and you're kind of like, I don't feel comfortable, like just, all that stuff. And I think social media adds so much. I'm not pretty enough, and that girl has this many likes, and there's Photoshop and there's filters, and my heart just breaks when I talk to teenagers, because I feel like it's just so much. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that,
It is.
we live in such a fast-paced society where if you're not
Mhm.
constantly producing and achieving and making things happen,
Right.
you're not functioning.
That's a good point.
We don't incorporate rest as a, important part of being able to produce things and achieve things.
Right.
Kids are told you have to go, 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 and parents demonstrate that, and that's where anxiety really gets amplified. It's
I
like,
agree.
yeah, so that's,
That's
it's
so
hard to
true.
watch kids go through that. Yeah.
Yes.
The anxiety in a child creates anxiety in a parent, let me tell you, because we're always
By the way,
worried.
yeah.
I'm not that I'm saying like it's just like it's a terrible thing, because it does. It creates anxiety for the
We
parents
empathize.
because we're always worried.
Mhm.
I can say most parents are super worried. All they want for their kids is to be happy and healthy and
Yeah.
employed, and
Yeah.
and they think that employed will give them that happiness and that security that we need. So we're always worried about that. So I mean, as parents, we know we're going to experience anxiety for our children, but when the children's, it was just so heartbreaking. I just have to say it's
Absolutely.
heartbreaking.
Yes, for sure.
Heartbreaking to see.
Absolutely.
So, Courtney, you have another child at home, and
Oh,
Megan's been.
she's not at home, but yes, she's almost 27. Our older daughter, yes.
Oh yeah. So, and they both had some touch of anxiety, or.
Well, she actually struggled with a learning disability. I wouldn't say hers was an anxiety thing. She had a learning disability, so that was really hard in school. Of course, when you live in a community where everything's so academic. But once again, I struggled with school, and I think I had the same kind of learning thing that she did. So it all kind of came back to me, so to speak. So I knew how to handle. I mean, anyways, I know that there's always, like I said earlier, life is not about academics. And thank God my dad told me that when I was growing up. It is not about that. It's really about you persevering in whatever you decide to do. You can persevere and you can, accomplish whatever you want. That's how I was raised, and it was a great way to be raised. It was a wonderful way to be raised, to be honest. So she's becoming an esthetician right now, actually. She's just finishing up esthetician school. She's an artist and went to art school for a while. So she has also kind of jumped around different schools, and, this didn't work and that didn't work. So that's another thing I help parents with, because when your child has a different path, which a lot of people are parents aren't really taught, what do you do if your kid isn't going to go to the top schools?
Right.
What do you do?
Right.
There's a lot of things you can do, and that's something I've done with both of them. So that's just another area where I feel like I really can excel with parents and really help with, because I think most parents are like, I don't know what to do. I don't understand. What do you do? We don't have a 4.0.
Right.
I'm like, well,
Absolutely.
here
So,
we go.
Megan, having a mom so supportive like Courtney has been helpful. Do you find that she's very empathic and she's very intuitive? Has that, and you probably are too. So, do you think perhaps those are gifts, but they can be curses until you learn how to handle them, right?
Yeah, and I think what I've also realized is I did 1 year of community college, and then I kind of had a minor health scare, and then I had like a healing session with the medical media. It was just like a spiritual awakening for me. And that kind of opened my eyes to like the spiritual world, and maybe I am an empath, and what I was feeling was me just being sensitive, and it was always in like a classroom or a large crowded place. So maybe I'm just picking up on other people's energies. And it really, though, having a mom who, one, is very intuitive and very confident in her beliefs, it helped a lot. It helped me to have such a strong role model, navigate just being a teen. And should I hang out with these people? Should I go to this thing? Because I think teenagers can also burn themselves out because they always want to, go to that party, go to that dance, go to that football. Like they want to just keep up and be seen. And they're growing into themselves. But having a mom who's like, you know what, maybe take a night off, take care of yourself, like just do what makes you happy. And she definitely growing up, like, would be like, okay, I don't really think that friend has the best interest for you or certain things. And it really paid off.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to have a parent who can say, maybe that's not the best choice. And then you're like, I don't know if I want to listen. I got to find out for myself, that's my kids. But Courtney, what kind of services do you offer for parents? Because I know we have to wrap this up kind of soon. So I want to kind of segue into that. What do you offer?
Well,
how do you support parents?
Just talk. First of all, we just have to have a face-to-face, whether it's, FaceTime or Skype, whatever. I just have to hear what's kind of going on. And then it's probably the best answer would be it's really custom for different things because I have parents calling for so many different things. My child isn't doing well at school, they're going to drop out, we're going to go a different path. Or my child's having anxiety, it's just such a different, each family is so different. So, like, it's hard to answer that specifically, but it's just really custom for each, just kind of helping them. And I point them in the direction I think they should go in. Like, yes, here's a good therapist. You need to go start that. You got to start that path. Or I think you need to learn, your child does need to take a semester off, and they need to learn meditation. They need to daily be doing this daily things that will really help them maybe kind of get in touch with what's going on. Why are they not feeling well? What's going on? Why are they overwhelmed? It's so different,
And parents need the support. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're doing this, every day is a trial and error when you're parenting.
Yes.
There's no perfect way to do it. There's no perfect parent. And so, obviously you've been able to really work with your child in acceptance and, support and love and being able to help her find her footing.
Right.
So she was able to manifest a TED Talk. Girl, Megan, I'm telling you, that is awesome.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. How did you do that? Tell us how you managed to manifest a TED Talk.
Yes. So, I applied for 2 years straight. It takes, I think manifesting, one part of it is like, it does take work and it does take consistent focusing on what that goal is and, how you're going to feel in the audience and visualizing. But, it took 2 years of sending in like 4 applications, like every 2 weeks. And there were many phone calls where I would call her crying and being like, I can't do this. Like, I'm not on the right path. I don't have a spirit team. Like everything you could think of. I'm like, this is not what I want. And, it was a lot of hard work. And when I left college, I literally did Toastmasters classes. I made a YouTube channel. I started a blog. I would network. And one thing, she's very good at like networking and meeting people. And so I made business cards online and I would go to any like Whole Foods, yoga studio, anything where I could just put out my card and meet people and introduce myself as a motivational speaker. And then, so it was 2 years of applying. And then February 13th, so it was this year, February 13th, I was emailing back and forth with this guy, and he was in charge of a TEDx Youth. So a TEDx Youth is a TEDx talk, but it's dedicated towards, children and teenagers and what hot topics in 2019, are in that like generation. And he's like, Megan, we have one speaker who will not be ready. So are you ready to take their place? But he's like, I have to warn you, our TEDx talk, it's in 2.5 weeks.
Wow.
Hello, anxiety.
Nothing like pressure.
I know. So usually TEDx speakers, TED Talk speakers, anyone, they have about 3 to 4 months to prepare. But I was like, in my heart, though, when I was emailing with him, I'm like, this just feels so right, though. I've been working so hard, and the fact that one speaker, I was like, yes.
Thank you, universe.
And it went great. That was February 13th. The talk was on March 8th, so that was not a lot of time, but one thing I'm good at is I grew up doing acting and drama, and that was a creative outlet for me. I love being on stage. I would be like the goofy class clown. that was like my outlet. I had such bad anxiety, but I was hyperactive. So, you know, I made a script, I memorized it, I did a lot of meditation and getting in the right headspace. And then it happened. My parents flew down.
What you talked about.
And I talked about anxiety and my
personal
personal journey. And, you know, life begins at the end of your comfort zone, and how anytime when I feel anxious, it really does help me to kind of shift my attitude towards like, you know what, I just want to be grateful. And then it's like, I don't even have the time to feel anxious. Like, it was a very great talk. My title was Anxiety, the New Teen Epidemic. And it was just such an honor, and I don't even remember it. I blacked out. I was nervous. But
It's awesome. I've watched it a couple of times. It's awesome. And
really?
I put the link in here. Yeah, and I posted it on my page. So
I know that was very sweet of you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing accomplishment. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
So cool.
Yay.
We
And
are
I know you have to get on a plane soon, so
Oh, yeah.
I'll let you go.
But you guys we love you so much. You guys are so good together.
Thank you.
We love hanging out with you. And seriously, you two are mother-daughter goals. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Mother-daughter goal right here. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I look forward to seeing what you both do, because you both
Thank you
have
for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
so much. Thank you.
This was so fun. You guys are awesome.
All right, Teresa, do you have some announcements for us? And Rhonda's going to announce the winner at the end because she didn't tell Teresa who it was.
Oh yeah, I forgot that part. One thing, real quick, Megan, real quick. I know the time is really short. Can you guys reiterate about the negative prayers, real quick, so people could see that how our negative
worry.
thoughts are?
Yeah.
Oh, I said that. Oh,
Yeah.
I said.
Yeah.
Oh, I said that's one of my things I love.
How did it come out?
Worrying is a form of prayer.
Right. For something
So
you don't want.
When people who people have chronic worry,
Yeah.
you're actually praying that happens. So
Yeah.
And you're drawing
That's
it
a good
in
way to
because
frame
it's a
it.
law
not
of
to
attraction.
scare anybody, but yeah.
And it's also
yeah.